If you want access to more Titans content, make sure to check out my Patreon. Link is in the description, and thank you so much to those of you who have already subscribed. I normally do these videos chronologically and just sort of rapid fire go play by play, but I think this video warrants a more focused approach so that I can sort of piece together what Shane Bowen's game plan was going into this matchup. And I'll tell you now that this is as impressive of a coaching performance, at least on the defensive side of the ball, as I've seen from Tennessee in years. And yeah, we're actually just going to be taking an in-depth look at Tennessee's defensive game plan against Kansas City. So when it comes to stopping or at least slowing down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, there's not really some silver bullet in terms of what you should do, but there's a few things you definitely shouldn't do. First of all, you should not blitz him. If you look at his efficiency when he's blitzed compared to when he isn't blitzed, he goes from being a top 10 quarterback normally to being a top 2 or 3 quarterback when you send that extra rusher. And you don't really need any statistics or analytics to figure that out. It's obvious from the film he has elite pocket presence, and if that pressure does get to him, he's able to make throws out of structure and off platform as well as any quarterback that's ever played. And with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, he has 2 receivers that can win at the deep and intermediate levels of the field. So when you take away a coverage player to blitz, you're really only putting more pressure on your secondary. The second thing is a little more ambiguous, but the Chiefs' offense is a lot better passing against man coverage than they are against zone. Some of this has to do with the fact that Kansas City has weapons that can consistently beat single coverage, and some of it has to do with Patrick Mahomes not being an elite processor. Not that he can't read defenses or anything, but he just isn't this Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type of quarterback that's seen everything and can just pick you apart in zone coverage. So all of that's to say that to me, the ideal game plan to stop the Chiefs is don't blitz and play zone coverage, but disguise it to try to slow down Mahomes' decision making. The Titans don't blitz a ton, but they do like to run a lot of man coverage. Last year they ran cover 1 37% of the time, which ranked 5th in the NFL, and weeks 1 to 5 of this season they've been running it 39% of the time. But then the Bills game happened and the Titans' entire secondary got hurt, so they were forced to play more zone coverage to try and limit big plays. Once Caleb Farley went down, the Titans only played 1 man coverage snap the entire game. So due to the fact that they were so thin at cornerback heading into week 7, Tennessee was kind of forced into the correct game plan. But I don't want to take anything away from Shane Bowen or the Titans defense because Bowen called a phenomenal game and the players did a good job of executing. There are 3 key aspects of the Titans' defensive strategy that I want to hit on. Number 1 is keep Mahomes guessing. Number 2 is bracket Tyreek Hill. And number 3 is only run man coverage on 3rd down. So if you don't know what people mean when they say a defense is disguising their coverage, when a quarterback reads the defense pre-snap, the first read he's making is middle of the field closed or middle of the field open. Middle of the field closed means there's 1 deep safety over the middle, so the defense is showing cover 1 or cover 3. Middle of the field open means there's 2 deep safeties, so the defense is showing cover 2 or cover 4. So the main way that defenses disguise what coverage they're in is by showing a look pre-snap and then rolling into a different look post-snap. And with really bad or inexperienced quarterbacks, this can trick them into making bad decisions and throwing interceptions. But even if you're not facing Sam Darnold, rotating your coverage looks can slow down a quarterback's processing and make the offense less effective overall. To give you a quick example of this, we can look at the Chiefs' 3rd offensive play of the game, and you can see the Titans are showing too high pre-snap, but post-snap they're rolling into cover 3, so Crookshank's playing this middle 3rd and Byard's coming up and playing the hook curl. This specific variation of cover 3 is called cover 3 buzz, and it's the most common way that defenses will rotate into cover 3 from a split safety look. Buzz just means that the strong safety is rolling into the hook curl, and he's basically playing robber coverage on any route that breaks inside. So that's just one of many ways that a defense can prevent the quarterback from identifying pre-snap what coverage they're in. And with how bad the Titans secondary was heading into this game, at least on paper, they needed to do this a lot. They couldn't afford to just sit back in vanilla zone coverage all day. And the Titans ended up rotating their pass coverage 68% of the time against the Chiefs. I chart every single Titans game. I record hundreds of columns of data on every single snap, whether it's personnel, formation, front, route concept, literally every possible element of every play. And one of the things I chart is how many safeties are deep pre-snap and how many are deep post-snap. And 68% difference is the highest number that I've ever recorded for secondary rotation. Shane Bowen was 100% cognizant of the fact that he needed to play a lot of zone coverage and that he couldn't let Mahomes get comfortable with his pre-snap reads. So Bowen pretty much threw the kitchen sink at him with how often he was disguising. And it was incredibly effective. The Titans' pass defense allowed an EPA per play of -0.29 when they rotated their secondary, compared with -0.13 when they didn't. And I know EPA can be kind of confusing, but for defense, lower EPA is better, and for offense, higher EPA is better. So the Titans secondary was moving all over the place for the entire game, but it wasn't just the fact that they were rotating their coverage a lot. Bowen used as diverse a combination of coverages as I've ever seen from him, and his timing and sequencing of those coverages was really smart as well. On this play, we've got, again, 2 deep safeties. This time they're rotating to 3 sky, which is just standard cover 3 in most defenses, where the strong safety covers the curl flat. The Chiefs are running a divide concept, which is a 12-yard out route and a post route from the number 2. With the assumption that Tennessee's in 2 high coverage, one of these routes should be open. If they're in quarters, Greg Mabin will be getting into his back pedal to carry this route vertically, and if they're in cover 2, Mabin will catch the route and the quarterback will move on to the post. Since Henne sees Mabin getting into his back pedal, he assumes that Tennessee's in quarters and he throws the out route, but since the Titans are actually in cover 3, there's 4 underneath defenders instead of 3, and Molden, who's playing the curl flat, breaks on the pass. And if this ball was thrown accurately, it probably would have been an interception. Up front, Tennessee's using simulated pressure, which is where you're still only rushing 4, but you're loading up the line of scrimmage, forcing the protection to account for all of these bodies, and then dropping guys into coverage. Right here, we've got split safety pre-snap, rotating into 3 buzz. So Mahomes sees middle of the field open, and he's got Kelsey running this curl into what would be the soft spot of cover 2, but Kevin Byard's coming up to take that away. As for the pass rush, the Titans only blitzed twice in this game, but they were still running games pretty frequently. They're in their jet front with 2 3-techs, and they're just going to run double techs, which is an edge tackle twist on each side. The 3 techniques are the penetrators, meaning that they occupy the guard and the tackle, while the edge rushers loop through the A-gaps. Built into all of Tennessee's disguises and rotations was a commitment to bracket Tyreek Hill whenever possible, even if it meant giving up yardage in the underneath zones. This is another play where Tennessee's in 3 buzz, and the weakness of any cover 3 variation is the seams, so Greg Mabin takes a really condensed drop to try and close off that window, and he pretty much disregards Mecole Hardman in the flat. On this play, the Titans are in Tampa 2, again rotating into it out of single high. Elijah Molden takes a pretty deep drop to keep Tyreek covered, and Rashaan Evans slants his drop towards Hill once Molden passes him off, all while Byard's sitting on top of his route. The Titans had no issue giving up the occasional 10-yard pass to Travis Kelce if it meant preventing any big plays from Tyreek Hill. Everything is a trade-off when it comes to pass coverage, and at times Tennessee let the Chiefs have some easy stuff underneath, but they did a great job of tackling, and the coverage in those underneath zones was still really good. The pass rush was extremely effective, and so the Chiefs were never really able to establish a consistent short passing game. This is another cover 3 look from Tennessee. This time they're rolling into cloud coverage towards Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman. Cloud coverage means that instead of the 3 deep defenders being a safety and 2 corners, it's a corner and 2 safeties. You can see they're really just prioritizing stopping the big play, but when you have a good pass rush, a lot of times teams still can't execute against deep zone coverage. The third element of Shane Bowen's game plan was to avoid playing man coverage on early downs. They were really outmatched in the defensive backfield, and so in general, Shane Bowen wanted to be more conservative. Tennessee ran man coverage 11 times on 3rd or 4th down, and only 3 times on 1st and 2nd, and they held up surprisingly well. The pass rush definitely helped close out a few plays, but a lot of Mahomes' pressures and sacks had more to do with how good the coverage was. The Titans also ran some 2-man, which is just man with 2 deep safeties instead of 1, which was a pretty significant changeup because they don't play that very often at all. They had only run cover 2 man 5 times all season, but they ran it 5 times in week 7 alone. This was really helpful in situations where Elijah Molden was matched up on Tyreek Hill in the slot because Molden was at a pretty significant speed disadvantage. And the Titans disguised their man coverage looks as well. Right here they're in cover one robber, and Kansas City's running deep curls with delayed wheel routes on the outside. The curls would be really effective against zone coverage, but not so much against man. Before I close this video out, I want to go over a kind of bizarre red zone sequence. So it's 2nd and 10, and the Chiefs are running double posts, and Tennessee's running sort of the perfect defense to stop it. For all intents and purposes, they're in 2-man, but they could easily be in a match quarter sort of deal. I'm not sure. Red zone pass coverages get kind of weird sometimes. But anyways, what's important is Jenkins and Molden are both going to carry these post routes man to man until they reach the safety depth, and then Jenkins is going to zone off and cover underneath, and the backside safety is going to sit on top of the inside post. So you end up with 3 defenders bracketing 2 post routes. Then the next play, it's 3rd and 18. Andy Reid's like, you know what, I'm going to run double posts even harder. And they just run the exact same play from the exact same formation, double posts with a drag route underneath, and the Titans play literally the exact same coverage to shut it down. When I first saw this, I thought I had accidentally duplicated one of the clips, but no, I guess they just really believed in this play. Okay, so now 4th down and 18, same formation again, but this time instead of double posts, the Chiefs run a post inside and a corner route, I guess to try to catch the defense off guard. But Molden was playing with pretty heavy outside leverage the entire time, so he had no issue defending that. Nothing really to take from that sequence, but I just thought it was really bizarre. But yeah, overall I thought Shane Bowen called a really good game. Outside of running some 2-man, they weren't really running anything they hadn't played so far this season. They just did a great job of mixing up how they got into their coverages. Kevin Byard was on top of his game as always. Rashaan Evans didn't make me sad for the 2nd straight week, and the backup corners were pretty serviceable. I think Mahomes bailed the defense out a little bit by not seeing some open receivers and bailing out of clean pockets a little too early, but the coverage unit as a whole was way better than anyone could have hoped for. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Also check out my Patreon if you want access to film breakdowns on every Titans game and access to more content.